Hi, I'm Nikki Klosser. I am a personal branding photographer in Michigan, and I'm also an educator, and you're listening to the Workflows Podcast.
So it's very funny that we quite often have bloopers that we want to have and we don't hit record. So there's probably a bunch of stuff that nobody's ever going to hear, but they're hearing this now. And, you know, they're going to have no idea why we're laughing, why we're talking about what we're talking about, but it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. So Ben, I'm very happy to have you here. We could have done this in person.
Yeah, we absolutely could have. I think it's like 30 minutes from my house. I could ride my bike to your house.
That would be a heck of a bike ride.
In this December climate.
Yeah. Actually, you probably feel nice and warm by the time you got here. That's for sure. So, what's been going on? We're recording this beginning of December. You're wrapping up your wedding season. How are things now that it's coming to the end of the season?
Well, I finally have a chance to breathe, you know. Post-production is wrapping up right now for all three of our brands. I think we have maybe less than 10 down the pipeline, and then we're wrapped up. And then I have a few more weddings to shoot this month, and then we're done. So This is the first time in many years that we're getting this kind of break this early in my season, I guess. And what I mean by that is usually in the months of January and February, I'm still doing post-production. But just like everyone else in the marketplace, we did experience a slight slowdown. And the thing is, over the past 2 years, you know, we had more work than we knew what to do with. So we had to over-engineer our post-production process to get everything out quickly. Yeah. But now that it's slowed down a little bit, you're basically bringing a cannon to a knife fight. Everything's done now. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's way more processing power than what we need for the amount of work that we got this year. So it's good. I get a little breather. We might take a vacation. I don't know where we're going. We might go to Seattle. Nice. We might go to Grand Canyon. We haven't decided yet. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seattle's beautiful. Have you been to Seattle before?
No. It'll be the first time for Seattle. And then the kids have never been to Grand Canyon, so I thought it might be nice to take them
Both
out
are great. Both are great. Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of my favorite things to do when I'm at the Grand Canyon is there's a lot of rock formations that look like animals.
But it's sort of like a cloud watching, right? It's like, oh, that looks like a baby. That looks like a watermelon, you know?
Sometimes, but there's Eagle Rock, looks like an eagle with its wings spread, very vividly, right? So,
are you sure there wasn't some human from a couple tens of thousands of years ago just start chiseling stuff just to mess with future humans?
Yeah, there could be. It's very possible. Yeah. I don't know what the name of this animal is going to be, but I'm going to carve it anyway. Yeah. So you mentioned that you have 3 brands, and I think that is a really good segue into what our first topic is going to be, which is the first item in your wedding business that is working well, and I should say businesses, really, that is working very well for you. And you mentioned to me off air that you've got a lot of repeatable steps and repeatable items within your workflow, and having 3 brands, I definitely think that is an essential thing
right absolutely
to have on lockdown. So can you share a little bit about what you have in place throughout your workflow that is repeatable, and what type of tools have been helpful for those?
Right. So anytime you have an operation that does the volume, there's a high volume, right? Every part of the process needs to be consistent, because if you have any kind of deviations from that, right, it just creates problems for you down the pike, okay? And this is not just on the post-production end of things, but it's also on the shooting end of things. This is also with meeting with clients and blogging and social media. All that stuff has to be consistent, because once you deviate, it just screws everything up. So with that being said, over 15 years of being in business, we've developed, it sounds so fancy, right? Develop, but really it was just figuring things out, troubleshooting, until we got, I guess, a formula that kind of just works for us. Right? And I don't know, how deep are we going into this?
Yeah, go as deep as you want to share. It's fine.
But yeah, it starts. I guess it starts with I guess even before we start shooting, we want to make sure that the client experience from the outset is going to be uniform, right? So we have CRMs in place to make sure that all the clients are getting the same emails. They're getting them in the same timely manner, right? We don't have some clients waiting 2 hours for an email and some waiting 3 days for an email response from us, right? Everything is automated in that regard. And all the meetings, I have a script that I go through with every single meeting. For 2 out of those 3 brands, I do the sales calls. The other one is my wife's company, and she does the sales calls for those, right? But for all 3 brands, we use the same exact script because we don't want to deviate from that. Because the thing is, if you don't have a control, right, you don't know what's wrong if something is messed up, right? So we've been using the same script for 15 years. In fact, this is the same script that I've been using in professional sales for over 20 plus years. I've sold things.
I was going to mention that, like, you know, getting to know you over the past couple of years, you've got a very intense sales background even before photography. So you've been able to carry that over and adapt it to photography very well. Yeah,
I've always told folks I'm a mediocre photographer, maybe a slightly above average. It's sort of like a driver, right? Everyone thinks they're slightly above average, right? That's where I am with my photography.
Especially in New Jersey.
I wouldn't say I'm the best, but the thing is, I always say that I'm a business person first. I'm a salesperson and marketing person first. You know, the photography stuff is just happens to be the thing that I'm selling at the moment, right? And I happen to be semi-decent with a camera. But yeah, I would say that this sales ability and this market ability is a thing that helped us kind of grow our 3 brands. But in any case, yeah, it's the same script that I use for all of our sales calls. So that way I can kind of track, you know, where it's falling apart, if it does fall apart. And then every couple, they get an engagement session. Every couple, they go through a design meeting with our design team to do their IPS. You know, I always think it's crazy when I'm in these Facebook groups and people telling me that they're just freewheeling on these not these shoots, but on these consults, right? They're just talking about whatever they want to talk about. I'm like, what are you doing? How do you know if you're hitting all your marks, or if, like, how do you measure like what's working and what's not working? And I don't know. For me,
having a sales call, you'll know potentially right up front, like, hey, this couple is going to spend, you know, they're going to wind up buying 2 albums just by like. You know, having those conversations, they may say, I'm going to get 1 album, but they might not want. You might know ahead of time, just from past experience, that in this conversation, they're buying more.
Right. And every question that I have in my consultation, they're all intentional, right? I'm not asking a question just to seem friendly, even though, you want to portray that, right? But the thing is, I'm asking questions intentionally to find out what kind of problems that they're trying to solve, so that way I can solve those problems for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in any case, and then we go into post-production, and this is where it can get really hairy for some folks, right? Because if you're only doing 10, 15 weddings a year, that's one thing, right? Once you get to 30, 40, 50, 80, 100 weddings, right? Which is where we are at, right? Around 100-ish weddings a year. You better make sure that your workflows are consistent and uniform.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's a screw up. And there have been
It's a domino effect.
Correct, right? And I've had new editors come in that I'm training and stuff. I'm like, oh no, what have you done, right? It's sort of like you have a new cook in the kitchen and they screw up the cake or whatever. It's like, what have you done? Now I got to fix your mess. But thankfully, I have SOPs in place. It's all written down, and they just have to follow. It's a checklist. Did you do this?
Right.
This, and this? It's all repeatable. And the hope is eventually they'll get it, and they'll have it committed to memory, and they'll just do it.
So 2 things. One, for those who don't know, SOP is standard operating procedure. For
Tracy at home.
For Tracy, yeah. Well played, sir. I was just listening to Smartless this morning on a walk, so love it. I should totally steal that from Smartless. That was incredible.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing, you mentioned that you've got the same flows in your CRM for the different brands. I have to know, are you using, and I think this is a really good, important thing for other photographers with multiple brands, whether it's multiple wedding brands or whether it's a wedding and then like a sports brand, because that exists too. Are you using the same CRM platform for each brand? And is it a brand's feature, or do you have to have multiple accounts? Like, I mean, like, does your one account offer you the multiple brands so you can manage all three in one account, or do you have to have multiple accounts?
Am I allowed to name drop, or are we cutting this?
Sure, yeah. Tell us what CRM you're using.
I'm using Tave, and I've been using them since 2014. You know, as with any platform, there are strengths and there are areas for improvement. But by and large, I've never had issues with Tave, and they don't pay me anything. I'm not an ambassador or anything like that. I've been using them. I have no complaints. Service is great, and I have all three of my brands housed under one dashboard.
That's great, because not all CRMs offer brand features. Like it's like you pay for one.
I don't know anything else.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's great. It's great. You found what works for you, and you're sticking with it because it hasn't given you a problem. And I think that's fantastic.
And what's really cool is it's been around long enough where I have API integrations with all the other fun things that I have going on. So it talks with my blog and it talks with my email marketing stuff, and actually has built-in email marketing stuff too, which I'm going to try, which is something I'm working on this winter. I got to integrate more stuff. I'm not using Tave to its full potential. So yeah.
I think that's pretty common, honestly. Like I
only use it to send out contracts. I don't use it for timeline building and stuff. I mean, although it's really nice, it's really fancy, right? But I don't use it for timeline building.
Like so I personally use Sprout Studio as my CRM, but I'm using PickTime as the gallery solution because I like having the PrintLab integration, especially for the photography that I do, and I like PickTime's integration more than I like Sprout Studios at the moment. But I understand Sprout Studios about to get a complete overhaul, so things might change in the future. But for now, like, I'm using two when I could be using just one, which would be nice. So it's so great that you have repeatable items throughout the process. I think it's like immensely important as a business grows, but especially as having multiple businesses that, yes, there's like overlap with what each business does, but they each have their own persona. In fact, as you said, like one is your wife's, not even yours, like it's your wife. So it's a completely different persona at that point. In fact, it's like her name's in it.
That is correct. Yeah, that is correct. Hey, listen, my name's in my logo too. It doesn't mean nothing. I'm not the boss.
She's still the boss. So you also mentioned that there's something else that's working well. And I think, again, bringing in family aspect to this, you mentioned that like infrastructure between like office and home is something that also has been working well. Can you talk more about that? And as it pertains to like your workflow and between work and life and that whole balance?
Sure, of course. One of the things I don't talk about, and I guess I should talk about this more, is that I do come from a position of privilege, I guess, in a way, because I have my in-laws living with us, right? They're retired, and they've been living with me since the day I've been married to their daughter. So they've always been in the house. So with that comes some flexibility in my time. You know what I mean? And so you compare me to someone who's just, I don't know, a family of four, and they don't have that help. You know what I mean? Now they got to juggle daycare. They got to juggle all those things, their family life with their business. For me, or for us rather, when my in-laws were still actively driving, they are not as active as they used to be, right? But even 5 or 6 years ago, they would pick up and drop off the kids at school. They would drive the kids to their activities and stuff. On the weekends, they're watching the kids while we're out shooting weddings. So in that way, we're very lucky. The other thing is we work at home. We have our own little office here at home. So we don't have to commute very far. But I imagine most people work from home as well. But the thing is, we actually have like editors coming into our home, photographers coming into our home, and actually we have meetings coming into our home, right? So like, or when we do these in-person meetings and stuff, they come into our home. So that makes things a lot easier compared to like if I were to have like a storefront on Main Street. I save a lot of time that way. It's a lot more convenient for me. So yeah, just having this in place, this little infrastructure, this little thing that I've created in place, just makes I'm doing what we can to make our lives as easy as possible. Now that the kids are a little older, they have friends that they can hitch a ride with. And they have activities after school, But when they were younger, they were a little bit more needier. But as they get older, they could even call an Uber if they want to. You know what I mean? And the kids have learned how to order pizza. on DoorDash. So like
Important skill.
Exactly, right? So the kids are not as needy. They don't need as much from the grandparents as they're enjoying their retirement more now. But having the right infrastructure in place is super important, because I could see how, again, like how other folks with especially with children and other responsibilities, there's a lot more burden on their shoulders. Yeah.
I'm in a similar way. Like my wife's parents live one street over from us, and her siblings also live within like a mile from us. So in the same way, like we've had the help over the years, and now we get to help as well with like their with siblings, kids, my nieces and nephews, and etc. But I think something extremely valuable, which you didn't mention, but I'm going to mention, is our kids now get to grow up extremely close to their grandparents, which is a beautiful thing. Like beyond work, just in general in life, that is a beautiful thing that I like. Growing up, I didn't have that. Like I lived close to one of my grandparents, but not the other. And I'm not as close to my grandparents. They're all passed at this point, but like I wasn't as close as I would have loved to, now seeing my kids and how close they are to their grandparents. So having that work infrastructure in place, extremely valuable, but also a beautiful thing from the personal standpoint for everybody.
Yeah, but at the moment, my kids are teenagers and a preteen. They hate everyone at the moment. So, so I don't know what it is, this lovey-dovey feeling that you're trying to talk about right now. But well, hopefully they'll grow out of it, right? But at the moment, they don't like anybody.
Just their friends.
Yeah,
that's so funny. So let's talk about now something that you've struggled with, that you're working on, and I know that what you shared with me is not necessarily a workflow thing, but it impacts your workflow across the board, right? So I'm curious if you want to talk about what you're working on in your life. That is
well, there's a couple of things that I'm working on, right? Yeah, we'll touch on all of them, right? This is my little therapy session. There are a lot of things that I'm working on at the moment. So you probably know this as well. Well, you not you probably, you do know this, right? Like this past year, I hosted my first summit, this conference here in New Jersey.
I might have been there.
Yeah, you might have been there. With or without power or internet, right? But it's not going to happen for the next one, I promise. But, I was running 3 businesses, and trying to be a dad, trying to be a husband, and also throwing this summit, and trying to be a podcaster, right? Like, it just took up so much of my bandwidth because I was trying to keep everyone happy. You know what I mean? My clients happy. I was trying to keep my wife happy and the kids happy. And even with the conference, got to keep the speakers and the sponsors and the attendees happy, right? I'm just trying to make everyone happy. I just want to serve, right? And it just sucked so much out of me. And I just needed some time to recover. I needed to step back just a little bit, right? But what was I trying to work on? Number one, trying not to put too much on my plate. Focus on the fundamentals and what pays the bills, who's the most important. And I think I talk about this in my podcast as well. You can't pour from an empty cup. You got to take care of yourself first. You got to be a little selfish sometimes. You got to take care of yourself first. So that's what I'm working on at the moment, taking care of the priorities of my life, my family, and of course the clients who pay the bills. The educational stuff, I'm still actively working with my students and people who want to learn from me and things like that. But the priority first is family and my photography businesses that pay the bills, right?
Yeah.
And then a tangent to that, right? A tangent to that is just, I just got to work on saying no to things and projects. I have a ADHD, and I think you do too, right? I have a shiny object syndrome, right? Like, ooh, that looks nice. I want that, right? That looks like a lot of fun. I want to do that, right? So I have to learn how to say no, right? Focus on what's important first, and then once you take care of business, then go play, right? But stop chasing all the shiny things. And
and there's always something as well to outsource where you're trying to spend more time for yourself. The podcast, for example, I believe you outsource the editing of your podcast
right
to an editor, right?
We do.
So
Yep.
I don't. Like, I could take that off my plate if Imagine allowed me to, right? But there's so many things, even with the event. Like, you could outsource a lot of the event planning to an event planner if you wanted to, right? Mm-hmm. Not saying you should, not saying you have to, just saying taking time to more for yourself and trying to not over please everything, right? Not be a yes person all the time. You could continue doing all the things you want to do just by continuing to outsource where it makes sense to outsource, and where the money also makes sense to outsource too.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I don't know if you've come to realize this too, but I'm also a little bit of a micromanager. I'm very hands-on with everything, much to the chagrin of anyone that I bring on board, anyone that I work with. I'm very particular. But, one thing that I have learned over the years is that sometimes you have to be okay with things coming back to you at 85, 90, 95%, right? Because at the end of the day, that's the only way that you're going to grow. You have to let go a little bit of control over the final product a little bit, especially if you're trying to grow this thing to scale. Because no one's ever going to be like you. You know what I mean? No one's ever going to do things 100% just like you. You can have your SOPs in place to get you as close as possible, right? But even with the most perfect SOPs in place, they're only going to get it like maybe even 99%. The goal is 100%, right? But no one's ever going to do it just like you.
Is better than perfect for most things.
Correct. Absolutely. Right.
But you still want done to be done well, not done poorly.
So this is a great segue to like the conversation about Imagine and how people are using this in their workflow. It's like, oh my gosh, I still got to spend 2 hours after I get it back from Imagine. I mean, some people spend 5 minutes with it, right? But it depends on how particular you are, right? Right?
Yep.
You can spend 5 hours with it if you want. Yeah. And the thing is, at the end of the day, it's still getting you to 70% or 80%. Or like, even if it gets you to 70%, right? And that's like a worst case scenario. I mean, Imagine usually gets me to about 90%, right? Yeah, about 90%, give or take. And I still got to spend a little time with it, right? But listen, that's still time savings. And you multiply that time savings over a volume of weddings, you're talking about hours saved, days saved, right? And this is something that I learned on Creative Live over 10 years ago, right? You see that little, that rainbow wheel spinning, right? Because Lightroom is trying to process the next image and stuff, right? If you can eliminate that, even if it's like 1 second, right? It's just 1 second per image, right? You're doing 1,000 images or 2,000 images. That's 1,000 seconds, 2,000 seconds per wedding. Right? You multiply that over how many weddings? Now you're talking about hours and days saved off that 1 second of time.
So not this past weekend, but the weekend before it, actually it was the day after Thanksgiving and then the day after that, I had 2 proposals back to back. And one of them was Princeton University, and it was in a section that isn't the most popular, but it's one of the, like, architecture-wise, history-wise, like, people walk through it. And that's exactly where the proposal was. It was just a great location for a proposal, but it had its busy moments. And when the proposal happened, unfortunately, there was a little boy that decided to dance right behind my couple. So there's a lot of photos where it's like, there's no chance that me with my Photoshop skills, I can remove that boy. I would have to outsource it to somebody.
AI can do that now.
AI can do it now. So my client said to me, I love the photos. Any chance that you could remove the boy in this one, this one, this one. 3 different photos. And, I'm like, I'll do my best, right? I'm like, it's not part of the contract for me to do that, but I'll do my best, right? And so I have Imagine not only do my editing and my straightening. I don't have Imagine crop because I try to crop in camera all the time, but straightening, I have it do skin smoothing and I have it do teeth whitening for every proposal job that I do. So I'm like, I save so much time from all that editing that I'm going to take 30 minutes to an hour to try to remove the boy from 3 photos. Why the heck not? And I successfully removed the boy where you could not tell from 1. And then the other 2 were trickier. So it's not as good, but it was still good enough that he still bought the photos.
This was a week ago?
This was the day after Thanksgiving, and then the day was that one, and then I had another proposal the following day.
No, AI is really good at removing things now.
Yeah.
In Lightroom, the generative fill and generative remove.
Yep.
It's been a godsend. Things that used to take, I don't know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, takes me about a minute, 30 seconds.
And in this case, this case I actually brought into Photoshop and used the new distraction removal feature, which you just say remove people. That's the one that was very easy because the people, there was no overlap between my clients and the boy or like the other people around.
Sure.
But the one where the boy was like, you know, like behind like his jacket or something, that was that Photoshop couldn't get it. So I had to do that manually.
Yeah. AI is taking over, man. Like it's saved so much time and just made our lives so much easier. Things that used to take forever now take just a couple of clicks and a couple of seconds, and we're done.
I'm curious, what other aspects of your workflow are you using AI in? Besides like the editing, the culling parts, like what other parts of like your business or in life are you using AI to help with things?
Well, I know my wife uses it for her blogging, right? Because she's not a natural writer. I actually have a writing degree, right? But even with that, it's not perfect. So sometimes I'll go into ChatGPT to make sure that I covered all my bases. Say, hey, listen, if I'm going to be talking about this topic, what are some of the bullet points I need to cover? And I'll use ChatGPT for that, right? But what was the question? Like, what areas?
Like, what other aspects of your business or in life are you using ChatGPT? I mean, AI. ChatGPT is a good example, very common, right? These days.
I use Midjourney to create images that I wouldn't be able to find through a Google search, right? So I was like, I remember this. I was doing a presentation where I needed Chicken Little, Chicken Little, where he's running through the street it's like the sky is falling, right? And I needed acorn fireballs falling out of the sky with a chicken running around the street and stuff, right? I couldn't find that on through a Google search, so I needed Midjourney to create that image for me. It was a frightening image that came out. It was a chicken with a chicken that with wings flapping and everything, but the chicken looked bewildered and everything, but it had human teeth.
Oh boy!
Remember Sonic the Hedgehog who had human teeth? It looked like that. It was looked a little weird, but everything else looked okay. I had flaming acorns coming out of the sky and everything. But yeah, like if I need something that I can't find through an easy Google search, I'll use AI for that. But yeah,
in the Imagine community a couple months ago, I did a fun thing where I made a bunch of like coloring pages, all photography related. I had ChatGPT help me create them. And one of them was a photographer taking pictures of like 10,000 chicken nuggets. And what it produced was like very strange, but I shared it in the community anyway, and people were enjoying it. So.
I do it for, just like you, I do it for practical joke reasons and stuff, right?
Yeah.
I remember when you were on our podcast, I think you shared with us, you play the clarinet?
Yep.
Clarinet, right? And I was like, all right, yep. I need a handsome bald man with glasses playing the clarinet on a subway, busking for money. I think I shared that picture. If you guys go back to the podcast, you guys can go ahead and check it out, right? Yeah. I think I shared that image. It was pretty funny. Didn't quite look like you, but it was pretty close.
I still haven't touched my clarinet since that day either. So still has not been played in well over 20 years.
Yeah, but it's fun for practical jokes because I couldn't easily Google that, right? But it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
AI has its place for serious things. It has its place for fun things. Like I look at Shutterfest. What was it? 3 years ago, I think. 2 or 3 years ago, Shutterfest, all the speaker banners that were in the exhibitor room, were all portraits submitted to Shutterfest for the banners that then Shutterfest turned them into AI generated images of. So every banner was an AI version of the speakers.
Interesting.
And it was purely a conversation starter. That's why Shutterfest did it, because it was a new topic in the industry was AI. And they wanted people to talk about it, and it did its job. Some were fantastic. Like Esteban Gil's looked really good.
But look at those chisel features on that guy. Of course, right?
But yeah, there was a lot that were so good. There's a lot that were so good, and then there were some that were like really bad. But again, like that's the conversation.
This is 3 years ago, though. This is 3 years ago.
Yeah, the AIs have gotten so much better since then too. But yeah. Anyway, so Yeah, it's a fun thing.
Yeah. So what I'm working on this winter, because the thing is, I don't want to be one of those educators who just preach, and not actually doing the work themselves. Because you've been in the industry long enough. You got some educators that are just a lot of fluff, or maybe they just they learned a new skill and now they're teaching it as if it's their own and stuff. Like I don't want to be called out as a hypocrite or anything like that. So I have to be doing the work too. You know what I mean? The work that I'm telling everyone that they should be doing. So for better or worse, I haven't been the best at blogging these past couple of years. So I will be taking care of that this winter. And in my defense, the reason why I haven't been blogging is because it was over the past couple of years, I realized that I had been doing it wrong. Or not that I haven't been doing it wrong, but like the landscape has changed since I've learned how to properly do it, right? So no longer are you doing, what do you call it? Wedding blogs, or rather, let me see here.
Just like 100 photos from the wedding in one blog article.
In one blog post, and then you do it for every single wedding. You don't do that anymore, right? So that's why I was like, oh, maybe I should kind of stop the bleeding first, right? Figure out how to properly do this, and then execute, right? And so I got a lot of cleaning up to do, a lot of troubleshooting to do this winter to kind of fix it and make it look proper. Yeah, because like I don't want to have those emails or the negativity coming my way. It's like, oh my God, this guy's blogging like, back in 2014, 2015. He's still doing those, he's doing all those things from 10 years ago, right? Like, I don't want to be that guy. So there's a lot of things I got to fix. But you need time for that, right? So having good infrastructure in place, good SOPs in place is going to help me take care of all those things.
And I think you could utilize ChatGPT for helping with that as well. Like if you create a spreadsheet of the name of the article, the link to the article, even like a column of just the content of the article, and you have ChatGPT analyze each one by one and provide you with like advice for improving go literally one by one, offer me advice for improving this, ask me any questions to help for improving it. And
well, here's a tip that I guess I can share with your listeners too, right? So I do use ChatGPT to get bullet points, but what I understood is that there are a lot of folks who are using ChatGPT for what you described, right? Just generating all the text, and then they'll just share it as if it's their own, right? So now you got all this AI generated content out there floating out there in the universe, right? So what I have been doing is sharing more personal stories, sharing more of my personal perspectives and viewpoints and things like that, being a little bit more conversational in my writing, and I think that is going to come through. I mean, I have 3 brands.
Oh, yeah.
One of them, well, 2 of them are personal brands, right? One's mine and one's my wife, right? So it's okay to have that personal touch in there where I'm speaking my mind and sharing my personal thoughts and things like that. So I think that will go over well. I'm still thinking about how I might do this for my associate brand. It could still be very mom and pop, I guess, have that mom and pop vibe. But yeah, I think having that personal touch in my copy, having that conversational tone, I think is going to help convert better. It's going to read better. You know what I mean? Oh yeah. Because if you look at, I don't know if some people can do this or not, but when I'm reading copy, I'm like, yo, a robot totally wrote that, right? It doesn't have, I don't know how to describe it, but it sounds like a robot wrote it. Yeah. So,
and by the way, I'm not saying that like you should use ChatGPT and then leave it as is. I'm saying like, use it for ideas of how you could improve what you've already written, right? Or what you've already published. So let's say it was a blog article from 5 years ago that you want to update, right? Use it to help give you ideas for updating it, not necessarily writing it for you, but just for the ideation of things, right? Because that's a lot of times, because we're not all writers, a lot of times it's, what do I do? Like, I need the trigger to then give me the idea. I need the trigger to get my creative brain working. Right. Then I can then write. So, if you don't have somebody to bounce the ideas off of, ChatGPT is a good
there are 2 things that I do to kind of help me write. Coming from my writing background, I do a lot of word association type of exercises, right? And just go off on a train of thought, right? What is it called?
Is that like your pineapple pizza one that you did at your talks? Is that what you're referring to?
Just riffing?
Well, you were talking about a topic like in some of the talks that you did. You were talking about a topic, and you brought up how many people like pineapple pizza, right? So, like, I'm just asking is, like, when you say, like, word association, is that what you're referring to?
Oh, no. It could be just a random word. You can go to Google, get a random word generator, and I think they have an app for that. And then you just tell a story out of that. It might trigger a memory. It could be something as simple as jellyfish, you know, and then you start talking about jellyfish. You know, did you know there's a Chinese appetizer?
Jellyfish?
When you go to Chinese restaurant banquets, like weddings and stuff, jellyfish is on the menu. It's one of the first things that come out when you eat it. It's that and pig's feet. They come out together on the same plate.
Would it be offensive if I didn't eat either of those things?
Oh, well, I'm not offended, right? But I'm just saying that's what it is. When you go to a Chinese wedding, those are the first two things that come out. It's pig's feet and jellyfish.
Yeah.
You know,
I did a destination wedding 2016 in New Orleans, and it was for a friend of mine, which is why I took it on. And it was a destination wedding, so why not? And I was so hungry by the time that the happy hour was going on, that, and it was very informal. Like, I did proposed photos like before the wedding and stuff, like of the families, but like the rest was just document the thing. So it was very laid back for me. I was so hungry, I went into the room because the wedding was outside New Orleans. Go into the room to go get the food, and I was like, oh, it's mac and cheese. That's fun. Not thinking, oh, it's like seafood mac and cheese.
Oh, yikes.
Wasn't expecting it, but I held it in.
Did you have a reaction?
No, I'm not allergic.
Sure, you can't eat it.
I can't eat it. It doesn't stay down typically. So I held it in, and I was so hungry I ate it, the whole thing.
Oh, no.
But like, I'm a picky eater to a point.
Yeah. As am I to a degree as well. But the second thing, and this is super helpful with writing blogs and things like that, I dictate my blogs. I don't know if I feel like you do too, right?
Yeah.
But like, I dictate, which is, listen, I'm a fast typer, but I can speak a lot faster than I can type.
Yes.
So I do Monday Night Lives with my coaching group and stuff. And a lot of that, believe it or not, is for a long time it was scripted. Now I'm doing more off the cuff type of stuff. But I would write all those scripts. I would write a full 1 hour presentation just dictating earlier in that day, and I'll have the whole hour presentation already done. And I'll use ChatGPT to make sure I'm hitting all my bullet points, but I'm dictating everything. Yesterday, I completed a full-length blog post on a venue that I'm working at, and it took me all day, but I'm dictating. I mean, this could have taken me conceivably all week, but dictating for the win, man. Like,
I'm gonna name drop two tools that for anybody who wants to try using AI for you to dictate to literally on your phone and then have the AI rewrite it into a blog article in your words since you're dictating. There are two tools that I use. I use one more than the other, but one is called Cast Magic, and it is fantastic. And the other is called Voice Notes. It's newer, not as robust as Cast Magic, but they both do a great job of summarizing what you said, and then you can also ask it to write a blog article in your own words based on your dictation. So definitely check those out. Ben, this has been fantastic. I love everything that you've shared that I think can really go a long way for both photographers that have a smaller business that are just starting out to the photographers that are doing the 100+ weddings a year like you are with multiple brands. It's very impressive that with everything you have going on, as you mentioned, you've got the podcast, which I'm going to ask you to drop in a second. You've got the 3 wedding brands between yours and your wife's, and then your wife's, and the event that that you throw on, the family, everything that you have going on. It is amazing that you're able to keep everything in their lane, on track with everything what's supposed to be going, very organized, and of course you're human, so there's always going to be stuff that needs improvement. Nothing is perfect. So, I'm very thankful to learn everything that you've got going on. And it's been a pleasure getting to know you over the past couple of years. And
it's a lot of fun.
I can't wait for more years.
Yeah. Am I going to see you in Dallas?
You will see me in Dallas. I'm pretty sure.
And Vegas.
And Vegas, which this episode is probably airing around that time. So we will We're talking about
this is
the
unacceptable.
past and the
this
present.
This is not acceptable. Dallas is 2 months away, my friend. What happened to SOPs and AI? And you got to delegate or automate, man.
That's right. Yeah. Can you share two things? One, share where all the listeners can check out your awesome wedding photography, and
Sure.
also about your podcast.
All right. So the three brands that we have for our wedding photography, my brand is just Ben Lau Photo. You can find me on Instagram, Ben Lau Photo. The website just benlau.com. And then our associate brand is Pearl Paper Studio. Pearl Paper is actually the stationery type that we have for our wedding invitations over 20 plus years ago, right? So that's where we got the name Pearl Paper Studio, where we house, I want to say 13 or 14 of our, lovely colleagues, super talented photographers who help us with that brand. So Pearl Paper Studio, you can find them on Instagram at Pearl Paper Studio, and also pearlpaperstudio.com. And then my wife, my beautiful darling wife, you can find her on Instagram at heykaris, HEYKARIS, and online, heykaris.com. My wife and I, we also host a podcast with our good friends, JR Photo, Jen and Ro over there. And I think we're wrapping up our second season. And we have a lot of fun there. We just talk shop and drink. That's all we do, right? You can find us on Spotify at it's the Focus Day of podcast, right? So you can find us on Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your podcast. There was a website, but I won't share that. There's nothing going on there. It needs to be updated. But we are on YouTube, so you can find us there, just the Focus Day of podcast. Also, there is the summit that I'm putting on the back burner just for the moment, while I kind of just collect all the pieces from the first one that I just planned. Yeah. But I hope to have something in place. We'll be having a different conversation this time next year. I just gotta, I learned a lot of lessons, and I know how to make it better for the next one. But that is the Focus Day of Summit. But we'll talk more about it, hopefully in a future episode or something like that. Okay. What else? Oh, and then I have my coaching group. So Go Getting Creative. It's a Facebook group. It's free, and I talk shop every Monday night at 7:00. So if y'all are listening there, just come and enjoy my group. I'm told I'm a lot of fun. Yeah, but I answer sales and marketing questions and things like that, and I just want to help folks with their business, so that way they can focus on what they do best, which is their photography or whatever it is that they sell.
I'm going to link to all of that in the show notes, so definitely click on the show notes, check it out, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Adios.
You have been listening to the Workflows Photography Podcast. To hear more from Workflows, to learn more about our guest, and for an exclusive offer for Workflows listeners, please go to workflowspodcast.com. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time.